TLDR, if this meme is you, welcome to your new army. Slaves to Darkness, Part 1, Propaganda. Although Sigmar has declared the Age of Chaos over and the Age of Hope begun, that's a bit of a stretch. The majority of the mortal realms are, for the most part, still controlled by chaos. Brutal hellscapes where hundreds of thousands of tribes of rugged barbarian psychos toil, roused to war as a lifestyle. Appeasing their dark gods and gaining their favor is simply the way life is. They walk the path of glory where each rival bested, each victory on the battlefield, or dark secret learned is another step closer to ultimate power. Everyone else may be doing what they need to do to survive, or placate the gods out of fear. But some are different. They seek them out. They want that terrible eye that others wilt away from to look upon them. And when it does, they will say, "Hey, check this shit out." And that's good. It's the drive to stay hungry, the will to keep winning, power as its own reward. If you suck, get turned into a spawn, idiot. If you rule, get juiced up with infinite gains. Dark crackling power, big armor, maybe a sweet rune blaster boy demon blade. It's sweet. The end result, for the 1 in a million found worthy at the end of the path to glory, is dark apotheosis, into a mighty demon prince. Except for one man, who climbed to the top of the ladder, easily earned the right, and declined. He knew the bait was hiding a switch, and he would not be controlled. Also, demon princes legit suck compared to a mortal hero who just keeps rolling on Eye of the Gods table over and over, as we will address in the rules section. No, better to be an immortal human with free will, laden with artifacts of power, and riding a 3-headed demon dragon mount the size of a gas station. Meet Archaon Everchosen, Grand Marshal of the Apocalypse. After conquering the old world, he's well established in this one, working on the two-time. He rules over millions of slaves to darkness, controlling, it's fair to say, the mortal realms itself for the better part of the last millennia, with an iron fist and a brutal, calculating mind. His backstory reads like a level 20 anti-paladin from James Workshop's personal D&D game he's been running with the board since 1996, because, like he is, originally a Templar before turning his back on the light. He gained tons of XP, totally winning battles, getting decked out in artifacts like the Eightfold Mark, Crown of Domination, the Eye of Ed Sheeran, impenetrable armor of Morkar, the fucking sword, and this mammoth mutating demon horse named Dorgar. He proved himself to each chaos god in order, gaining their blessings and slapping their greatest champions, and feeding their body bags to his horse. Slaanesh didn't send a champion, because at that point, why bother? They'd just get their ass kicked too, and why waste a champion? So Dorgar was now a titanic, mutated, tri-demon monster, and Archaon pulled what is known as a gamer move. Pledge to all 4 chaos gods that matter, and have them fight for his favor. So any who would pull back support create a power vacuum for the others. And since he literally can't stop winning, they actually just have to deal with it. Captures the all-points central portal network for the mortal realms, erects Varan Spire there as a seat of power surrounded by several armies worth of Varan Guard, stabs the zodiacal solar dragon god beast Ignax in the brain, breaks its mind and enslaves it, almost collects another in Behemoth, the god beast father of all Megagargants, which Sigmar had to personally kill to stop it from breaking open his ear. He once killed every single hammerhand in that entire Stormcast chamber to a man, including Vandus. Defeated Sigmar himself in the Battle of Burning Skies. He hit him with that yoinky spelunky to steal Gal Maraz. And you can play him in the game, he's actually pretty good. In fact, I don't know why people don't describe Age of Sigmar as a post-apocalypse setting. Because really it is. There was a golden age, then chaos came back with Archaon leading the charge. He hard won. Their overgod was forced to full retreat into heaven and lock the doors. Archaon just straight ran shit for almost 1,000 years after that. Chaos wastelands everywhere. By the time Sigmar came back with some Stormcast 20 plus generations later, the native humans probably didn't even know who Sigmar was. Yeah, it's the Age of Hope and the good guys are tentatively pushing back with great effort and sacrifice. But it ain't no Noble Bright unless you live in Azir. AOS is post-apocalypse. In recent times, he has suffered some setbacks, however. From the incessant infighting of millions of cultists and chaos warriors across the realms who turn on each other the instant a common enemy isn't around and Archaon or his generals aren't nearby, to the recent would-be usurper Bellacor's conniving machinations. Don't think he didn't know about that one. And yes, some disparate minor Stormcast victories and a few irrelevant cities spread across one or two of the 7 realms under his command. Will he bring the Age of Hope to heel? Was the early Chaos domination just antagonistic pleiotropy? You like that one? I used it as a metaphor. I use at least one big word per video so I can claim them as educational content on YouTube and game the system. Part 2, Models. For many of you, it all started with this, and this guy in particular. Or even these. If you can read this without your glasses, you didn't start with these. The original big shoulder plate art style heavy armor that spawned endless copies and inspirations down the years, even from themselves, a few times. For the modern sculpts, they did such an excellent job upgrading the poly count, the details, better movement, more dynamic, but still keeping the soul of what came before them. Big black armor chaos barbarian dudes with requisite bad guy fluffy collars and capes. Everyone looks so sick. Warriors, chosen, chaos knights, mounted heroes. They exude classic badass fantasy art. Except big, and outfitted in upscaled weapons and effects, thus earning them the nickname from my Discord, Fridge Frizetta style. Endearingly dumb, but in a fun way. Some find Vanguard too busy, but honestly it depends on how you paint them. GW style tends to emphasize every single bit and trim on a sculpt, often to its detriment. Like all factions, the oldest stuff is looking ugmo, but for STD that's few and far between. A joy to paint and look great on the table in a wide range of painting skills. From matte colors with metallic trim to actually somehow painting this dude's eyes. Perhaps with an electron microscope brush. Huge intimidating centerpieces and a plethora of cultist warbands with creative flair. On difficulty I'd put them at Stormcast +1. Decent amounts of armor and metal, but with spikes and more trim, more material types, and about the same number of faces. Part 3, Playstyle. Slaves to Darkness plays exactly like you think it should. Almost. Their chaos-infused power, artifact armor, and demon weapons serve them very well on the table. Brick houses of melee bruiser troops accomplishing the rare dish it out and take it feat on the table. GW tends to understat and overcost all-arounder type units, and AOS players tend to build armies like WoW Progress parse gods, meaning all but the most stout anvils usually melt in one combat. But Chaos Warriors pull it off, solemnly marching up, shrugging off hits, and pulling enemies down. Your Cavalry and Elite Hammers are excellent, with tricks to make them either very fast or teleport, backed up by Chaos Sorcerers with actually insane bonuses to cast, who admittedly sometimes burst into Hellfire and die. Slot machine bingo noises going off all over the battlefield from Eye of the Gods bonuses. It's a good time. In exchange for these strengths, Slaves to Darkness have no range to speak of, and their monster hero game is weak, as are, surprisingly, Demon Princes, who got just a complete dog turd of a war scroll, to such a degree that it's actually not worth becoming one when you roll boxcars on the table of value. Just select Rend for a 5th time, you'll be fine. Oh, I mentioned Archaon before. He's very playable as a fast, super durable wizard warrior tyrant on the table. At 860 points, he's basically half your army, and you need to build your list around him for sure, but he sets the pace of the game and forces your slain units to fight before they die, and randomly decapitates heroes in one hit with that Vorpal sword of his. Part 4, Rules. For Allegiance abilities, you start with Mark of Chaos, but I'm going to start with Eye of the Gods because it puts the rest of that into context. The Wheel of Value is how you spin to win along your path to glory, and maybe sometimes die. It's fun. Whenever a unit with the Eye of the Gods keyword kills a hero or monster, and when it steals an objective from your opponent, roll 2d6 and you get the mystery prize. Snake Eyes turns you into a Chaos spawn, get owned, and the first half of them are weak. But 5-up ward, become a wizard, +1 rend all weapons for the rest of the game, and it stacks, by the way. 11 and 12 you can pick. These are some big boy buffs that are actually worth building around. Oh yeah, and you can also turn into a Demon Prince with an 11-up. But they suck real bad, and chances are your dude will literally get weaker by doing it most of the time, since he'll lose the War Scroll ability you probably took him for. They do stay your general and keep traits and artifacts, which is cool flavor, but I mean, we'll get to it. Alright, now that we set the tone, Marks of Chaos. Every unit in your army that has Mark of Chaos keyword, you can mark it with one of the 4 Chaos Gods, or Undivided for extra powers. Pick and choose the god that blesses each of your Conans, mixing and matching whichever ones grant you your revenge. And if the buff sucks, then duel with you. Entire army uniform dedication is for the desperate pick-me chaos factions. STD are canonically min-maxing in the actual Mortal Realms. Undivided is for making the odds be ever in your favor. Your heroes get to re-roll one of the dice when making Eye of the God rolls, which is really the thing you want. Straight rolling is for chumps. Also, this is fun. It does let some of your non-heroes roll, but it's only d6 plus 2, so meh. Your command ability is +1 to wound monsters and heroes, which is bad because all-out attack is better and has no target limitation, and you can't do both. Khorne is for the mighty +1 attacks on the charge buff, for free, and their command ability gives d3 impact hits on a 2-up. No nonsense bonus damn, I like it. It's worth noting that because Khorne can't have wizards, they secretly end up with a much higher chance of rolling bonus rend on Eye of the Gods. Nice. Tzeentch is for based teleport enjoyers. You get an extra spell that, well, teleports a Tzeentch unit on a 6. Nice. You also get a 6-up spell ignore, which is awful. This mark is okay, but you have plenty of movement shenanigans already, and the opportunity cost is high since the other marks are so good. Nurgle is for big Dura. You're at -1 to be wounded in melee, which is excellent, and your command ability is Gulping Bite, which is bad. Doesn't matter, Nurgle mark is your bread and butter for Chaos Warriors and Archaon. Slaanesh is for tacticians, and often ends up doing everything Khorne mark does, only more, depending on your other choices. +1 to run and charge, and their command ability allows run and charge. Nice. These buffs and CAs work in power pairs, so like-marked units only. Rounding out your Allegiance abilities, you have Vows of Darkness, which are 2 very strong heroic actions. Pledge to the Dark Gods lets you roll 3 dice drop the lowest for the Wheel of Value every time you roll that turn. And cheating at these rolls, remember, is the name of the game, as long as it's by the rules. Draw on Power is incredibly strong. Your wizard rolls 3d6, do not drop the lowest for all their spells that turn. Jesus. If you miscast, you take d6 mortal wounds, but hey, no pain, no gain. For traits, you got 2 tables, one for everyone, one for demons. Favorite of the Pantheon lets your general roll on Eye of the Gods right after deployment for free. Any gamblers in the chat? And Idolater Lord lets you run a cultist-themed army by giving them Marks of Chaos. Actually nice. The Demon Prince ones are trash. For artifacts, same split except also a wizard table. The Conqueror's Crown is sick, enemy models within 6 with 1 or 2 wounds cannot contest objectives. Great flavor and a powerhouse against most battle line in the game. Also helps you spin the wheel since you roll on Eye when you steal an objective. For Demon Prince artifacts, you have a totally sweet Doombringer Demon Blade. Before the first turn, you pick an enemy hero or monster and your whole army gets +1 to wound it, forever. That's really quite nice, but Demon Princes are so bad that this is not tempting, and the wizard ones are trash. For spell lores, you're pretty good. Demonic Speed is godlike. Targets a mounted unit only but gives them long bomb 3d6 charges, that's incredible, and combines very nicely with Slaanesh Run and Charge. Chaotic Conduit lets target unit within range roll on Eye of the Gods immediately. We love gambling. Binding Damnation makes an enemy unit fight last, which combos nicely with Chaos Chosen, as we'll discuss later, or as a general utility spell. Ruinous Vigor allows a monster to fight as if it were unwounded, which is bad because your monsters are bad. And most of them don't even have a wounds table. That being said, I wouldn't even play this in Beastclaw, and they have Frost Lords, so maybe this spell was doomed from the get-go. For endless spells, Eightfold Doom Sigil is one of the most annoying things to read. Alright, keep track of the number of models that are slain within 12 of this endless spell each turn. At the end of each turn, roll a die for each model that was slain within 12 of this endless spell during that turn. For each 3-up, the player whose turn is taking place must pick 1 Slaves to Darkness unit wholly within 18, add 1 to the attacks characteristic of that unit's melee weapons, excluding those of its mounts, until that player's next hero phase. A unit can only benefit from this once. But that's a good buff, and 40 points is a good price. Drop it on some central place and chill. Honestly, the main reason not to play this is so you don't have to explain the goddamn thing to every opponent you play against. Realm Scourge Rupture and Demon Wraith are both bad, as well as more expensive than the one that isn't bad. For your custom enhancement, you have sweet-ass banners. Pick 1 to put on a Chaos Warrior Chosen or Knight Standard Bearer. The Undivided Dread Banner has the unit roll 2d6 drop the lowest for Eye of the Gods, which helps them get the good stuff, so this one's fun. Khorne Banner of Rage gives them +1 to wound rolls, which I would only put on Chaos Knights personally, if at all. Tzeentch Blasted Standard gives them a 4-up ward against ranged attacks, which is not good despite casuals malding about shooting. Nurgle Eroding Icon is sick, both definitions. Melee attacks that target them have 1 less rend. Excellent. Slaanesh Banner of Screaming Flesh is also sick, +1 attacks on the charge, hell yeah. This makes Slaanesh Mark just better than the Khorne Mark, as long as you use the banner, so stay mad I guess. And finally the Blasphemous Icon that any mark can use, but none will, because it gives non-chaos priests -1 to chant. Not a lot of armies play priests, and half of the ones that do are chaos, so this is trash. Then you choose a Damned Legion, aka a Subfaction. The first one is Host of the Everchosen, and despite its name, you do not play Archaon in it. You can rally your Chaos Warriors, Chosen, Knights, and Vanguard on a 5-up, which is quite good, although the opportunities to do so are hampered by generally being in combat all the time. The book says 4-up, but it got wisely nerfed. It's good versus shooting and range chip damage, so consider it a meta choice. You also get a second banner, that's fun. Legion of the First Prince is Bellacor's secret perfidious subfaction, and it used to be blatantly overpowered, but now it's trash. 1 undivided unit per battle round gains another mark, which isn't as good as it sounds, also it'd be better if it was once per turn instead. Your allied demon units can use marks, but they have to be the ones of their demon subtype, and demon troops suck big time, so this is like Johnny in full cope mode subfaction. Now Kabbalists. They're for you personally, or maybe just me. Look, sometimes you had a rough day, you just need something to go right for once. This subfaction was scientifically created with fun in mind. All your heroes become wizards. If they were already, they know and can cast an extra spell. Yes, you get up to 6 free arcane tomes. There is a downside though, you can't use the actual arcane tome artifact if that hero used to not be a wizard. Also, since Khorne can't have wizards, BTFO. This shit is so good that it's really hard for me to justify ever taking anything else. But then again, I'm all about that value. Despoilers is for Demon Princes. Add 2 to the wounds characteristic of your monsters, even though Demon Princes are not monsters. Okay. And each of your Demon Princes can have a command trait instead of just your general. But your demon traits suck, and also Demon Princes suck, so like, man. There just isn't anything going on here with this one. Now if Archaon is the rock, Ravagers are his millions. You get a heroic action to return a slain cultist, Dark Oath, or Marauder unit to the battlefield at half strength, which is quite good. Especially since you round up. So you can bring back singular heroes this way. Combo detected. This is actually the subfaction you play Archaon in, since fighting before you die synergizes well with reanimation, and when half your army is one guy, it behooves you to spam boots on the ground for the other half. Knights of the Empty Throne is for your all Cavalry Vanguard army list needs. You can rally them back on a 5-up, which like hosts is good versus chip, and they all get run and charge so you can make an alright Alpha Strike army. It's alright. For battalions, your book comes with 2 different 1-drop battle regiment kinds, which is great. So now you have 3 different ways of choosing who goes first. Tactical genius. Part 5 Units. You may find the heroes to be a bit fiddly here, but your allegiance abilities for them are strong. And they want you to customize their roles, and as we'll later see, your troops are so powerful it's probably a balancing point. Where else should we start but with the big man himself? Archaon is chilling on 25 wounds with a 3-up save and a 5-up ward. This is an incredibly tanky boy. Put that Nurgle mark on him for -1 to be wounded, and you have maybe the foremost anvil in the game. Point cost notwithstanding. 14-inch flying is proper dragon movement, double caster, that's great. Though he doesn't have a War Scroll spell, and you will feel the lack of a cool spell there. Also, he doesn't do the best damage for a demigod, less than half that of Kragnos, for instance. So an army paying 860 for him is going to be more controlled than DPS. His artifacts give him a ton of powers, like 6's kickback a mortal wound on his ward, enemy units can't rally or inspire within 12, 4-up spell immunity, and he has a 10% chance to auto-kill a hero with Slayer of Kings. His command ability targets another chaos unit, and they fight before they die this turn, which is very nice. Though it's a shame he can no longer use it on himself. He's always undivided, but before the game begins, you can give him a second mark. Usually Nurgle, to make him even more impossible to kill. His mount has 3 heads, so each of them get a very bad monstrous action that are all worse than Roar, so you'll just use Roar. Also, he counts as your general in addition to any other generals you have. Double Jennies. Once per game instead of roll priority, you can roll d6. 1 to 3, opponent has to take the turn, and 4 to 6, you have to. It's a bit odd, since you don't give either player any choices to make, but the chaotic Eye of Shirian has that unpredictable chatoyance, so what are you gonna do? He's good, very hard to kill, mobile, and gets you value back whenever anything dies near him. But you will need to use him properly to get your points worth. 860's a lot. On the plus side, sometimes your opponent simply won't be able to deal with him. Next up is Be'lakor, the first to ascend the path to glory and become a demon prince long ago. He's a 355 point double caster with a not bad wound debuff spell, an ethereal 4-up save, which is usually a bit of a downside in 3rd edition if I'm honest, and some weak attacks. He's very fast at flying though, that's good. But his Lord of Torment ability does nothing. So, after all that, why is he still good? Because half of his points cost is coming from the Dark Master ability, aka the reason you take him. Once per game at the start of the enemy hero phase, pick an enemy unit to be fucked with. At the start of each phase until your next turn, on a 3-up they can't move, shoot, fight, use commands, pray, cast spells, dispel, or unbind.
Jesus.
So it is a bit random. On a 1 or 2 they're safe, unbefucked if you will, but this is normally devastating. Even if you just target their most expensive unit without thinking too much, it still really messes with their plans. So Be'lakor is one OP ability, and then it's you kind of finding stuff for him to do once he's used it, against an opponent who doesn't really want to devote resources to killing him once he's shot his shot. He ain't bad. Eternus. Welcome to Post-Production Lore Corner. Once the captain of the 8th Circle of Varanguard, Ateris became disillusioned with the empty throne in Varanspire. While defeat after defeat was suffered at the hands of destruction demigods bulldozing strategically crucial chaos citadels and warkeeps, seemingly for kicks, only for Archaon to arrive too late with reinforcements, their attackers already having left to randomly smash something else the Kragnos herd had dragons in it. So following the whispers of discontent, he found himself before Be'lakor, and made to pledge his sword. The Dark Master grinned wide and interrupted Ateris mid-sentence, ripping him from his horse by the throat, and flew him up into the stratosphere. There he had cracked the sky, trapping the souls of 100 Stormcasts he'd slain, lightning geists frozen in dark magic, unable to return to Azir. He burned Ateris from the inside with hellfire, instantly killing him. Then, one by one, siphoned those lightning spirits into him, burning with blue flame until nothing was left but bones. Then, 2 fellfire eyes opened deep within his blackened helmet, and they looked upon their new master. His first task was converting the 8th Circle Varanguard's loyalty to Be'lakor, and by all accounts he's been quite successful. Only a handful remain loyal to Archaon, and they're currently being hunted down to keep the lid on Eternus' duplicity. Damn, that's sick. I bet this guy is a Giga Chad Chaos perversion of a Stormcast. Well, he's weird. Mounted Chaos Lord guy, decent wheel, decent attack, strikes first when he charges, that's decent. He's just decent. 235 is a lot for a guy you can't give enhancements to, that really hurts him. Each of your movement phases, he can get Dark Reforged and Deep Strike back to the battlefield if you get a lucky 2d6 roll, which maybe happens once a game if he dies early. Sadly, the best use for him is taking a unit of Legionnaires or Furies to hang out near him to give you extra command point every turn. Which you do want. This army is hungry for command points, but that puts the package up to the mid-300s, which is like Be'lakor, or 10 Chaos Warriors plus Sorcerer level points. He's an expensive pet unit whose main job is doing something you didn't think his job was, or should be. Then we have Demon Princes, only 1 weapon, not good at fighting, and they chose to make their power into a heroic action, which was a very bad decision since STD's 2 custom allegiance ones are so insane that these pale in comparison. However, let me be clear, if these were just on War Scroll abilities, they would still be bad. Dude sucks, never pay points for one, but still probably buy one since you'll ascend some hero into it sometimes after you rolled 3 or 4 rend on Eye of the Gods. When you do, pick wings over the Battle Shock thing because this is Age of Sigmar. No one rolls Battle Shock if it would matter, and flying is OP. For weapons, claws are the least bad weapon option since you'll have lots of rend by then. These dudes needed claws plus the weapon choice, and those heroic actions needed to be entirely different, and also not heroic actions. Humongous miss here for like a faction representative model in War Scroll. Next we have a bunch of different types of Chaos Lords and Chaos Sorcerer Lords. The rule of thumb is the cheapest ones are the best, because you do not get good value for what extra you pay. But it's not linear after the foot one, so let's get it. The humble Chaos Sorcerer Lord on foot, Mr. Auto Include. They fit a lot of power into a 120-point frame. 4-up save, better than your average single caster. Free 6-up ward to hand out to a mortal unit during your hero phase. No rolling or resources required. His War Scroll ability is Demonic Power. Long range melee buff for +1 to hit and wound. That's a powerhouse buff. Arcane Tome is great on him, so both spells can get that insane hero action bonus. Or Kabbalists. Slanesh Mark is common, so he can juice up a hammer squad. Don't leave home without one. Chaos Lord on foot, can't fight but doesn't matter. Gets a bodyguard retinue to stay alive, nice 3-up save. Hook him up with Conqueror's Crown, Nurgle Mark, and a unit of Chaos Warriors. Makes a great, cost-effective, objective-owning anvil. Extra worth it in the GC season. 120 points well spent. Karka Lord, look at this dude. 9 wounds so he fits in battalions, 3-up armor and a 5-up ward against mortal wounds. From his Chaos armor, which I generally call rune wards if they only work against mortals, and then normal wards work against everything. Though 9-inch move is a bit slow. 2-up D3 impact hits on the charge, just okay melee damage. So far he's alright, but where's the buff? Well, he doesn't really have one. Which puts him in job limbo pet unit zone automatically. He fights first on the charge and can pull your Chaos Knights in with him, which is a nice trick, but not as good as a real buff. He's a job light pet unit, 225's a lot. Dude needed a buff or better weapons. Looking for a discount? Horse Lord is a slim 155 and basically the same as Karka Lord except 1 less wound, 1 more speed, and does no damage instead of decent. Which means he has even less of a job than Karka Lord. Mantis Lord. Now, yeesh. Okay, any 3D printers in the chat? Anyway, this dude is all in on being a pet unit. He's a random assortment of stuff that you can lean into one way or another to try to find a way to make it work. If you choose redeploy, you can re-roll the die, which is potentially very good since that command is strong but super random. He's a monster so he can roar, that's good. So what can he do? Well, you can give him Lance plus Flail, mark him Corn for the extra attack since he has a lot of profiles, even if they aren't the best, and be like a monster hunter kinda with Territorial Predator. Or give him Shield plus Arcane Tome, have him be Tactics guy, maybe fights last spell. Either way, he's not easy to get your points worth. He's kind of a meme at 270, but a custom pet unit one. Just do me a favor, make your own model. Woof. Sorcerer Lord on Manticore is a bit different. Now, silver bullets are generally not good, categorically, just due to how AOS works. But amongst anti-horde silver bullets, this guy's spell is great. So if massive regiments ever come back and sideboards become a thing in AOS, he could be a good choice. As it stands, he's a 265 Sorcerer Lord on foot, with a worse spell but faster movement. Mostly weak and expensive, but Fast Wizard with Roar is possibly a job. Gaunt Summoner on and off disc are for maximum copium Johnny combo players trying to squeeze coal into a diamond. Doublecaster Wizard with an amazing Guillermo del Toro looking ass sculpt, knows all the lore spells, +1 to cast and unbind, is perfect. Well, about that. Not immortal, so no 3d6 to cast heroic action, no Eye of the Gods, no Mark of Chaos, bad War Scroll spell. Silver Tower ability does nothing because at the end of any phase where this guy was attacked, he will be dead. So no chance for the ability to work unless the thing has impact hits. Also 210 is very high. Where are those points coming from? Well, Silver Portal. When you would deploy a Tzeentch marked unit, they can instead go into the Silver Tower to deep strike later within 9 of him. Any number of units, even. The problem is, if he dies, those units are lost forever. Dude's on 5 wounds and a 6-up save, so to say that this is a risk is an incredible understatement. Risky, expensive pet unit tier. Also, there's a more expensive version who's fast with a better save. Ready to throw good money after bad? On to the troops. Let's start with the classics, Chaos Warriors. I love it when the rules stand up to the lore and the looks. These dudes got it. 2 wounds, excellent 3-up armor, and 5-up rune ward. No Stormcast weakness to mortal wounds here. They are bringers of desolation, so when in opponent territory or fighting within 12 of an objective you don't control, they go up to 3 attacks a model, not bad. As for halberds versus murderous weapons, for the most part, unless it's 2 ranks battalion, which I wouldn't recommend, the halberds are better. Once you get down to about 6 of them, the one-handers take over, but it's close regardless. These dudes were born to claim the Nurgle mark. At 220 for 10, they make great, well-costed anvil battle line. With really an enviable stat line across most of AOS. You can, of course, customize their job a bit with different marks, but for the most part, that's what your other units are for. Speaking of, if you're looking for big body anti-paladin damage, dark damage. Chosen are aptly named. 3 wounds, 3-up armor, but no rune ward. and I usually don't mention it, but 9 bravery for elite troops is quite high. Soul Splitters have nice 2-inch range attacks, but I must say, Rend 1 damage 2 weapons feel a touch undertuned for a unit like this. Never mind, they proc mortal wounds on 6s to hit in addition, with a lot of attacks, we're good. Also, once a game, they can pile in twice, just with that strike last effect, as seems to be a tradition. Which normally means they get hit in between both activations, but combo detected with that strike last spell. After deployment, they automatically roll on Eye of the Gods, dark value, and are a solid choice for a banner enhancement. I should note, only battle line in a host subfaction. At 5 for 240, their price feels fine, and of course a unit of 10 with 2-inch reach, they will shred whatever they fight. Generally survive enough for later combats, but they work in both sizes. So we got great anvils, great hammers. What about speed? Besides teleport tricks, you got 2 options. Chaos Knights and Vanguard. Please be good, right? Well, they are. 3 wounds on a 3-up save, 5-up rune ward. Cursed lances do good damage on the charge. Notably, the unit champ only gets a bonus attack with the lance, so just use that. Yeah, they deal no damage when you haven't charged. But the other weapons aren't tempting enough to break out of this niche. They're good at what they do, it's your job to get them to do it. Something that will really help you with that is their Hornblower, who is actually a Chad. When they charge, you can change one of the die rolls to a 4. This means even normally very risky plays like teleport into 9-inch charge has like an 80% success rate. Another huge quality of life addition here that other cavalry wish they had is Riders of Doom. Lets them all fight while staying in coherency for the most part. They're a touch slow at 10 inches and their damage wilts when not charging, but they're solid at their job if 10 or 20 points high. The other cavalry option is Vanguard, Archaon's personal, Vanguard. Judging by the models and points cost, you might assume these are simply bigger, more elite Chaos Knights, but I consider them more like a murder of Chaos Lords, rolling around as an actual unit. This generally lines up with the lore as well. 5 wounds each, 3-up save with a 4-up rune ward. Certainly beefier, though in units of 3 rather than 5. Elite keywords so they can all issue commands, as they're all Chaos Lords, so no one's the champ exactly. As such, they can mix and match weapons, and which ones you choose are largely up to personal preference, though ensorcelled weapons I think edge the others out. This unit is better at grinding when it needs to, rather than requiring the charge like Chaos Knights. Also, they have the good version of once a game double pile-in. No strikes last here. Another good candidate for Khorne or Slaanesh. If you're using 6, which is rare, then yeah, take the Ren 3 Fell Spears. They're right on the cusp of prohibitively expensive, but you can still do good work with them. I honestly wish they had one more ability at 290 for 3. If you want some glass cannons, or shock troops if you're playing narrative, Slaves to Darkness has some terrifying options. One of which I'm very surprised to see has survived past the FAQ phase, but let's start with the reasonable choice. Ogroid Theridons, the mega meat slappers of STD. They're in units of 3 with lots of wounds, but terrible 5-up armor. They'll die, it's fine. If they had 4-up, they'd die too. Give them those great axes or their ancestors will be embarrassed. Ren 2 damage 3, that's some ogre quality attacks. So we want to Khorne mark them for sure for +1 attacks. Once a game they can become upset for another +1 attack. This once a game, by the way, will be the first time they fight anything since it's a glass cannon. After that, they're probably dead. Now they aren't mortals, so no demonic power spell, no battle line unless you take some horrid do-nothing hero. And their Berserker Rage ability will generally never happen. All water under the bridge. They slap hard for 190 points. A great choice for simmering behind some Chaos Warriors to reach over the top and club as a countercharge unit, or for sending off to clap something before they die. Then there's Splintered Fang, a battle line Chaos Warband for 100 points with 32 attacks that do mortal wounds on 6 to hit. Jesus. I have no idea why this is allowed, but if you're the type of player who likes to exploit early and often, enjoy painting up 130 of these or whatever. For those who don't want to be stuck holding the bag when this is eventually fixed, chill. Next up is the stuff section, starting with Legionnaires, the would-be Chaos Warriors who secretly pledged to Be'lakor instead. Their sharp-looking Brigadine doesn't quite equal Chaos Plate at a 4-up save, no Rune Ward, and underwhelming weapons, though a few of them get +1 damage, and their Dark Irons get Chaos Warrior stat lines if they're next to Be'lakor. Dark Iron. They're nice and cheap though, at 8 for 110, basically half off Chaos Warriors, just half as good. So Confusion is a useful, if unreliable, utility effect. Every phase, they stop enemy commands to a unit within 6 on a 4-up, and if they're chillin' with Eternus, he becomes a command point generator. Not a bad pet unit, considering cost and battle line status. The I want chaff, but I don't want to buy a warband unit. Well, have I got a chariot for you. It's fast, cheap, is battle line, has a big base to clog up the board and get in the way, and does Trampling Charge Ogre ability impact hits on 5s before it totally dies. Not bad. There's also the fabled Fuck Beast Chariot version, but it's more expensive and worse, so don't do that. Corvus Cabal is a neat little warband if you want a deep strike. Useful in seasons that care about being in opponent territory or on battle plans your opponent doesn't want to camp on points for. Combo notice, if you give them a mark, when they deep strike onto an objective your opponent moved off of, they get to spin the wheel. Dark Oath Savagers are basically fair Splintered Fang. They'll look cooler. Dark Oath. 100-point unit with mortal wounds on 6s in addition, but fewer attacks. If they saunter onto an objective and capture it, they get a 5-up ward, and you can ravage them back to life if you're in that subfaction. Chaos Spawn. You'll need some of these, as various effects in your army create them, but they're garbage on purpose, so don't pay points for them. Also, the model is trash, so make your own. And now we have the memes. I would not call these units good, but if you believe hard enough and outplay your opponent, sometimes they can do something. Exalted Hero of Chaos. Slambo reborn and warped into a casino and decided he likes roulette. This may be a shock, but playable meme pet unit actually. 6 wounds, 4-up save, kinda whatever attacks. Take the shield, the damage is almost identical, 4s and 4s suck, and you want him to live long enough to become the meme. When you deploy him, he spins the wheel automatically. Mark him Khorne for more likely rend rolls, keep spinning the wheel, pick rend, repeat until absurd. The plan is actually going Demon Prince after 4 or 5 rend, 6 twice in testing. That's value. Mutalith Vortex Beast. For 185 points you get a monster that can roar, but does no damage, dies easily, is very slow, and has one of those awful roll a d6 and one of 6 random things happens abilities. Trash. But if a Tzeentch hero is nearby, you roll 2d6 and pick the one you want, and half of them are mortal wounds to an enemy within 18. This mixes well with the Tzeentch Mark teleport. Pick it up if you want a weirdo, expensive, conditional meme cannon. Fomoroid Crusher, aka Bobby Briccolini. This dude has 10 wounds and a 5-up save, so he isn't great at not dying. And his melee attacks are Crypt Honker, no rend having, nothing to see here. However, he chucks damage 3 bricks, 1 for each hand, though short 12-inch range, and down to 2 damage if he's not duct taped to terrain. And in your hero phase, you can pick a terrain feature within 6 and roll for every other unit within 6 of it. 3-ups or D3 mortal wounds. Sometimes it's demolished. If you're playing one of those mega casual games with like 0 terrain where the table's as flat as an ice rink and everyone thinks shooting is OP, this guy legit does nothing. But if you're on a proper table or a tournament one, maybe it has one of those humongous central terrain features, it might as well be called the Brick Store. And this guy is shopping. On the perfect table plus battle plan, he's Shin Bobby Briccolini. On just a lucky table, he's like, okay. Otherwise, he's trash. Meme tier for sure, but go ahead and pick one up if you're the one setting up the table. Soul Grinder, aka one of the Play-Doh mock-ups they digitized while making Doom 2 in 1994, who has 40k cyber parts and laser guns while being allowed in Age of Sigmar for some reason. 18 wounds makes him more durable than his 4-up save implies, though he cannot issue commands, which is embarrassing, and for me is the nail in the coffin of trying to make this guy do anything. 12-inch move, but has run and shoot with some okay ranged profiles. He can kind of crab zoom around, missing a lot since all his weapons hit on 4s. He's 230 points. He's not good. No, not even into spoilers. The meme is thinking like a Warcom article and pretending like you'll just roll 6s nonstop, which is a good introduction to the trash section. Dark Oath War Queen and Dark Oath Chieftain. They're cheap, and technically in Ravagers you can reanimate them since the slain unit regen rounds up, but they don't come back with an artifact if they had one. Also, they don't do anything, so they are trash. Chaos War Shrine. It's a buff wagon with bad buffs. The Slaanesh one is good though, but you get that for free already in at least 2 other ways. It's trash. Ogroid Myrmidon looks awesome, but he is entirely worthless. The only thing he has is 1 Therodon battle line, but you don't want that. Those guys aren't bad, but you don't want them as battle line. Slaughter Brute is a comically bad monster that can't even issue itself commands. Imagine. Centaurian Marshal looks cool, but doesn't do anything. Also no mark. However, let's take a moment to gaze in wonder at the monumental failure that is Gladiator's Net. Pick 1 enemy unit within 1 inch, roll a die. On a 1 to 5, nothing happens, amazing. But on a 6, that unit fights last. This is terrible, but it gets worse. This ability has no effect on enemy units that are monsters or have more than 5 models, which is almost every non-foot hero, right? Preposterously bad. Setting aside how no one who plays the game could ever want this, or how it only works on a 6, but it has you roll for the effect before excluding targets. This is awful design. Imagine using this during play. Why would you roll first, only to later be told it doesn't work on such and such types of units? Why not write that first and save your player a superfluous die roll? Mind Stealer Sphere Ankh looks sweet, but isn't a monster and rolls against bravery for its ability. Bad. Zarshida Shitter Soul. Moving on. Then there's a bunch of units that are basically cheap chaff, sometimes with a little utility effect, but not usually a good one. Plus you already have cheap chaff, so the following units are generally worth skipping, unless you just think they look cool, in which case they work just fine in the chaff role. Marauders, Horse Marauders, Horns of Hashut, the Unmade, Cypher Lords, Tarantulos Brood, Signs of the Flame, Spire Tyrants, Iron Golems, Untamed Beasts, Raptorix, and Furries. Let's end on a high note though, with some rare-to-see, playable Underworlds warbands. The Double Dira Soul Scryer. 160 points for a wizard with a decent wound debuff War Scroll spell, an oath that she can easily fulfill by heroic action 3d6 casting, to become a double caster for the rest of the game, is a Dark Oath unit of 1, so if in Ravagers she can self-reanimate, and comes with a 5-man Godsworn 3-up bodyguard unit of 10 ablative wounds. Her War Scroll is stacked. And finally there's Sarikar Black Belt featuring Big Jeffy. For 185 points, you get a Deep Striking Wizard with an OK D3 Mortal Wound spell that levels up into an 18-inch range D6 version, once he kills a model with it. Also, he gets a 5-up ward from that oath. And he comes with a second unit led by Big Jeffy, a 3-man slam squad that does as much damage as 10 Chaos Warriors. Their oath is to charge within 12 of Black Belt, which is not hard since they also Deep Strike, and both do so within 7 instead of 9, if a nearby enemy model is wounded. Once they do, they get a 5-up ward and 6 of the hit proc mortal wounds in addition. Both units can Ravager back to life, or both get wizard powers in Kabbalist. It's an annoyance utility meme squad for sure, but a playable pet unit one. Part 6, Notes and Target Audience. Slaves to Darkness are for players who want their coolest looking models to also be great in the game. You have at least one Frank Frazetta poster and listen to Man on the Silver Mountain while you paint. You're already thinking about converting a Chaos Lord to look like Nathan Explosion. But most importantly, you are the bad guys, because they have sick armor, evil weapons, and dark ritual banners. If the good guys wanted you to play them, they should have looked cooler. While you're light on impactful monsters, lack ranged weapons, and your heavily armored units tend towards the slower side, you have a plethora of dark powers to teleport or otherwise sweep you across the battlefield, wheresoever needs dominating. A general is only as good as his troops, and yours are classic powerhouses that excel in their clearly defined roles. After all, it is a very good thing for a man to know his place. Thanks for watching. I'm HeyWoah. Join my Discord if you feel like it. Buy a shirt, will ya?